The Arizona Coyotes have announced their final roster. We're going to have to break down all of the players and all of the surprises, additions, subtractions, all of that on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robin Leonio. That's Carl Pavlik right beside me. On today's episode of Locked On Coyotes, I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We got a great show for you guys today. The Arizona Coyotes announcing their opening night roster as the season is set to begin this week. What an exciting time, Carl, that we're getting so close. Including, well, let's just say the fact that the Coyotes now have their tandem goalie.
Yeah, finally. Another instant of, Bill Armstrong playing things down to the wire. The Coyotes got a goalie off of a waiver
The waiver
pickup.
wire.
Yes.
What you did there?
If you haven't heard, the Coyotes were able to claim Nashville's Connor Ingram, who was a very interesting pickup. I know a lot of the Nashville people are sad to see him go, but they like that he's going to have an opportunity to play. He is definitely going to have an opportunity to play with the Coyotes.
Absolutely, he's gonna have a massive opportunity playing in tandem with Karel Vejmelka, and it's gonna be really awesome. You look at his stats; he only played 3 games with the Predators last year because he just finally made his way up after having played in the AHL for what looks like 5-6 years,
Yeah.
right? And obviously, the first couple of those years were with the Syracuse Crunch, affiliate of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and before moving on over to actually a few games too with the Orlando Solar Bears in the ECHL before going to the Milwaukee Admirals in the AHL.
Yeah. That is, definitely one of the career paths of a goalie. Like some of them definitely have to go through a bit before they're able to come up. I do want to just kind of point out that he is only 25 years old, which is nowhere near the goaltending prime. They tend to hit like way later, so this should be, potentially a really good pickup for the Coyotes. Like Vejmelka was a good sign. Ingram could be another good sign for Bill Armstrong.
Absolutely. If you just even take a look at his AHL stats from last year, Carl, 54 games played, a 2.70 goals against average, and a 9.15 save percentage with a with a record of 30, 17, and 9.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the AHL. It's definitely a lower league, but, you know, that could be a pretty good indication. And honestly, I don't think that he really needs to, be a world beater. The Coyotes are not going to be winning games. So he just kind of needs to keep them in the game. He needs to be a steady person for Vejmelka to rely on. Or if he takes over and is the one and Vejmelka's backup, hey, that works too. Kind of, not really expecting too much from him, but it's going to be a big job.
Yeah, that's the most important part, right? You're talking about how kind of the dynamic is going to be with Vejmelka, and you consider the fact that you know we're like Vejmelka needs a goalie who can push him, a goalie who can challenge him to be better, based
Yeah.
off of what we know of Connor Ingram from his AHL time. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to translate to the NHL, but you sure hope that something like that can translate and be that push. And especially with how young he is, he only has a lot more to prove.
Yeah. I will also say that he seems like definitely a bigger contender for someone who can push Vejmelka compared to the other pickup, Jonas Johansson, and then John Gillis. Um, you know, We
I
weren't
mean,
really
you and I both
expecting too
agreed on
much
that.
from those. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I both agreed. We're like, when they picked up John Gillis, you and I were like, there's no way he's
Yeah.
being in tandem with Vejmelka. We just don't know what his role is going to be. Maybe he's going to fill in or whatever. I don't know. And then obviously he was waived, and then they picked up Johansson, and Johansson's on the injured reserve. But even then, when they picked up Johansson, we're just like, what decision are they making here? Like, there's no way he's gonna be in tandem with Vejmelka. And then, like, once I saw the news on Monday where it said that the Coyotes claimed Connor Ingram, and I'm like, there it is. That's the goalie.
That finally makes sense. Do you think that they were like they knew that was going to happen? Was that the plan, or do you think that for a while it seemed like because that claim happened today? If he wasn't put on the waiver wire, what would the Coyotes have done?
Find something. I don't know. They'd make some weird decisions sometimes.
Yeah. Like I would have to like think trade because just like internally we did not see like a contender. Like the team is gonna lose. Like that's the plan. But you
hmm
don't want them to lose so bad that they like, you know, have a mental breakdown and all of the morale is gone. You need to keep the room some way. You need someone to give them a chance.
And you
And
said it yourself. Last thing we want is the Coyotes to go through another historic record-breaking losing streak to start the year.
yeah, no, absolutely not. We do not want that at all. Um, but is Connor Ingram gonna be that? Is he gonna be enough to keep the Coyotes from having that? It's kind of a low bar, but maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I will say it's different, and it's the thing that both you and I were asking for, but and it goes back to what we were saying earlier, is the fact that he's 25, and the guy that we wanted to push Vejmelka, we were expecting to be a veteran.
Yeah, that is true. He is definitely a lot younger than I thought. But I do think he is going to provide like something that an older player couldn't. Um, that kind of like push because I kind of wanted someone who would be like there to make sure that like if Vejmelka gets stuck in his head, like you put him in, and to me that's like a veteran guy who you can rely on to like put in 2/3 of the way through a game. This is going to be a much different situation. This is going to be a guy a year younger than you from a different league last season. Like that's a challenge, and that could be really good for Vermelka. It'll be interesting to see how he responds because this is definitely not the same relationship, he had with Wedgwood.
Absolutely, and that's going to be the interesting thing. I know Ingram had, I think, the couple games he played with Nashville were towards the end of the year because of the injuries to their starting goalie. So like it was like he got brought in, right?
Yeah,
And he performed admirably even there too. Looks like he even played 4 games in the playoffs, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So
nice.
in those 4 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs, a 3.64 save percentage and 3.64 goals against average, excuse me, and a 9.13 save percentage.
That's pretty good. Like that's a definitely a small sample size, but that's something to be excited about.
And let's keep in mind those 4 games were against the Colorado Avalanche.
uh, that just
Ingram got thrown out to the Wolves and still posted a 9.13 save percentage in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Ingram and Prosvetov should just like sit down and have a conversation about what it's like to get thrown to the Colorado Avalanche. Oh, and the Predators too. That just seems painful. Uh,
Absolutely.
can't even imagine.
I know. But there you go. The Coyotes have their goaltender, which puts us into an interesting conversation. Moving on in just a moment, we're going to talk about the Coyotes' opening night roster. Some decisions were made that were interesting that we're definitely going to want to talk about. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, I'm turning to Carl for a quick word.
So I have to ask if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, why are you depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys? And guess what? There's a new flavor. It is the indulgent cookie dough. It's covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. The cookie dough puff is so good. It's only 160 calories and it has a whopping 15 grams of protein. You could run to built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat. Or you could find a good hiding place for them and hoard them all for yourself. You know, Halloween's coming up later this month and everyone's going to have a lot of candy. But, don't do that. Just get a couple of Built bars. It'll be, that nice, sugary, chocolatey, indulgent flavor. What I want you to do is go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off.
So let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We were talking Arizona Coyotes opening night roster, opening night for the Coyotes, just only a couple days away. And Carl, the Coyotes have made a number of decisions. Obviously, we talked about the goaltending because they picked up Ingram. And what's interesting, if you look at you look at it and it's Ingram and Vejmelka, and it shows Johansson on injured reserve.
Yep.
So that just that gave us the idea right there. That decision, literally, this roster thing came out right after Ingram was picked up.
Yeah. And it is definitely not a great roster, if we're being honest. This is a roster of a team that's going to be uh, shooting for a first overall pick. Before we get into everything, I just kind of want to go through the injured reserve list because they tend to get lost. Jacob Chikrin, Andrew Ladd, Brian Little, Johan Johansson, and Ben McCartney. Who knows if Ladd is going to come back? Little is, I believe, not. Ben McCartney is not waiver or does not have to go through waivers, so he can get reassigned. And what's going to happen with Chikrin?
That's the big question. Like, has he played his last game as a Coyote, or they're just gonna
I mean, we've made it through training camp, which kind of, a lot of people thought he would get traded then. So we're past that point. I'm thinking maybe like a month or two into the season or at the trade deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that. But those players in the injured reserve definitely interesting. Having Chikrin on there, I don't think is a surprise to anyone given what's developed in the last few months.
Yeah.
So if you are surprised, go back and listen to some of our other podcasts because it's kind of been foreshadowed, even though we didn't talk about it specifically.
Yeah. And just like, Chikrin also has a bit of an injury history. He missed time like twice last season due to injury. You want to make sure that he is healthy and ready to go for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's go ahead and start breaking this down, Carl. Breaking down these opening night roster, and we're gonna go by a little bit by some groupings, based off of position groups. Let's take a look at the forwards. I'm gonna name all the forwards, and we're gonna talk about some surprises and some interesting pieces of this. So obviously, this is in numerical order. It's got Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller, Dylan Guenther, Nick Ritchie, Nick Bukestad, Jack McBain, Barrett Hayton, Christian Fisher, Liam O'Brien, Zach Cassian, Matthias Michelli, Lawson Krause, and Travis Boyd.
So I just want to point out that the Coyotes have yet to retire Radim Verbata's number, which maybe they should, because Bukestad's wearing it.
That's right, Bukestad wearing number 17 for the Arizona Coyotes. But let me get into something interesting, Carl,
Sure.
because I have talked about it and I've been wanting this to happen, but at the same time, I want to get your opinion on whether or not this is the right decision for the Coyotes, and that is putting Dylan Guenther on this opening night roster.
I think it is the right decision. Last year, something I believe we talked about is Andre Torini thought it was appropriate to send him down so he'd get his start with his juniors team. He knows how important that is, but it's another year. He's older. He seems like he is going to be making the NHL very soon. Might as well keep him up while you can slide the
Absolutely,
contract.
absolutely. And then the Coyotes have 9 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have 9 games to use them however they want, and if they decide to send them back down, they can do it right, before the end of the 9.
Yeah, they'll send him back down. He'll tear up the uh,
WHL.
WHL. Thank you. And he'll probably come back. Probably won't be ready. I don't know if the Coyotes will be playing when he come back, but you know I think that's probably going to be his last year there. He's probably going to be an NHL player next season, so give him a start.
Oh yeah, give him a couple reps, right? That's the most important part because you saw how he played in preseason, but preseason's a whole different thing. And like I know you said, you should play to your best of your ability in each part of the season, but like in preseason, you're playing a lot of teams who aren't their full roster, right?
Yeah,
So now you want to see it's like okay, let's take a look at how Gunther can actually play against full like NHL level talent.
yeah, and maybe he is just that good right now. In which case, if you're the Coyotes, maybe you still send him back just because you're like, no, we don't need to be
We
too
don't
good
want to
right now.
risk anything with you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Connor Ingram is if he is too good, the Coyotes may just trade him and downgrade that because, seeing the rosters that are coming out, the Coyotes are going to have company at the bottom of this tankathon.
Oh yeah, no, the Tankathon like this year has consisted of a solid 5 teams, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Any other surprises for the forwards from you?
Um, I'm in like I wouldn't necessarily surprised, but I am intrigued by the decision to have Matthias Michelli as up there. Because like obviously I really like Michelli. I really liked how he played in Tucson last year, and I think he is well deserved of this spot. But the reason why I'm saying intrigued is because of the same reason that I'm curious about Gunther is the fact that you know you do want to risk anything with the Coyotes playing as poorly as they're probably going to be playing and put the future talent up in here.
I am. I agree. I am not sure that Michelli is the same level of
Oh no,
Dylan
he's definitely at
Gunther.
the same level as Gunther. Like I'm not like saying they're equal, but
Yeah,
like it's like Michelli has impressed a lot, right? And the thing is
yeah.
like if he can really get as much development as possible in Tucson, I am going to be for it.
I'm honestly surprised that he made the team over Nate Smith. Like that really kind of stuck out. Like Smith went down pretty early on for a guy who I thought played really well at the end of the season. Was at the
Hmm.
prospect development camp. Uh, couldn't watch most of the preseason. So I don't know how he did, but it seemed like the Coyotes are having a big vote of confidence in Michelli by having him up with Smith down, and that'll be it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
It will be interesting to see how that works out. And like I'm curious to see how he fits in because like again, he's going to be I wouldn't necessarily say key player, but he's going to be like bottom six, like you know, massive role player
Yeah,
for the future team that's gonna be really good.
yeah, he could definitely be a good role player. I think that's a reasonable expectation for him, especially if he keeps improving, like you said. I thought as the season went on, he looked good. You know, he's on a bad team, so no one looked great other than a few select, but definitely had a few highlights. 23 games. It's a good stretch last season.
Absolutely, I'm just excited to see what he can do.
Yeah.
Anything else from you on the forwards before we move on to defense?
Let me see. Not really. There's not a whole lot of surprise. Like we kind of all saw this team coming. Um, I will say McBain starting with the opening night roster. That's definitely, you know, I would say key. I think he is one of the more intriguing players to watch. I liked him at the end of last season. The fact that McBain is up and Smith is down, that is probably a reverse of what I think a lot of people would have thought would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like they were both two, pretty high level NCAA prospects, but like at the same time, like there was an expectation that Smith was going to be better, but McBain probably put in more work during the off season,
Yeah,
and that showed.
that's the thing about being the guy who don't have as high expectation. You're gonna work hard and prove people wrong.
Absolutely. But that's it for forwards. Now let's move on to the defense for the Arizona Coyotes, consisting of Patrick Nemeth, Josh Brown, Yuso Valimaki, Shane Gostisbehere, Connor Timmins, Troy Stetcher, Dyson Mayo, and J.J. Mosier.
Honestly, the only prize there is Valimaki, because I didn't know the team was going to be claiming him off waivers. But if you would ask to like predict the defensive core at the start of preseason, we probably would have gotten this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just makes sense given these circumstances surrounding the Coyotes. What's interesting is the fact that they are putting out 8 defensemen because, like, usually it's like 7, right? You have your 6 plus an extra.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how they're going to deploy that and be like, okay, like it's gonna work exactly this way. These players are gonna rotate in this way, and which 6 are gonna be the normal starting.
yeah, that is definitely you know something to see. There's going to be a lot of competition for spots. Uh, I I am not sure. Like there's a lot of uncertainty. This is a very new blue line compared to what it was. Like right now, it's 3 players. Timmons a little bit, but he got injured so early. Like he didn't like we had no chance to see him. And I'm sure he didn't have any chance to develop chemistry with Yanis Mosier or Dyson Mayo, who came up after he was hurt.
Right.
So yeah, it's I don't really know how the Coyotes are going to play their blue line. It's one of the more interesting things to watch. Uh, I I don't think it's going to be very good. Let me just kind of say that. Like these are a lot of younger players and a lot of not necessarily the most talented players. Like even with a Jacob Chikrin, I don't see too much life in this blue line.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like, um, it there's something to be said about the fact that really, if you are just a casual, let's say maybe just say like a little bit more of a casual hockey fan, not just casual, but a little bit more of a casual hockey fan. The only really name out here that really sticks out that anyone's going to recognize is Shane Gostisbehere, and
Yeah,
that's saying something about this defense.
yeah, definitely. If you're like maybe like one level up, you remember Connor Timmins as being like a highly anticipated prospect, but you know maybe you heard something good about Yanis Mosher at some point last year, although I kind of doubt it. He was definitely a surprise, but he wasn't like a big hit. You know, the casual fan's not going to know him.
Exactly. But now we're entering into an era where this is Shane Gostisbehere's defense. Like
Yeah.
he's the leader. Like, which is like who thought we'd see this coming, like, a while back.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a good thing, considering the team is also looking to shop him. Uh, you know, we could very well see Gostisbehere go at the trade deadline and Chikrin go much sooner. And
It's
then who's
all
going to
part of
run
the
this blue
rebuild.
line?
It's
Yeah,
all part of the rebuild. Unfortunately, I've said this multiple times to everyone. If you are an Arizona Coyotes fan, do not pick a favorite player because you don't know if they're going to last the rebuild.
don't get any name on the back of your jersey. You're just going to jinx them. Uh, don't do it. But you know, it'll be interesting to see kind of what the Coyotes decide to do with their 8 defensemen, how long they decide to keep them. Because we very well could see like at a certain point them just being like, hey, it's not working out, we're gonna move one of you, or hey, I was gonna say Dyson, or hey, Mosier, go back to the AHL. You're not ready. Who knows? This is a whole new Coyotes team with a whole new like defensive coach. So we really don't know.
Yeah, we really don't know. It will be interesting. Um, and like I said at the beginning, like you said multiple times, let's just hope that this team is at least not bad enough to lose 12 games in a row to start the season.
Yeah,
It's unfortunately, I mean, that's the reality of it. You just got to really hope that they don't do that again because that put us through a lot of pain.
yeah. There is more pain to come. There is absolutely more pain to come, and it's going to be different types of pain all throughout this next 82 games. Hockey is back, everybody! Yay!
Hockey is back, and it's uh games I think technically start today, right on this Tuesday, but like
I believe so. I think the Coyotes' first game is Thursday,
the
right?
13th. Yeah, on Thursday, 13th.
That's fun. At least
And
it's
they
not
don't,
Friday the 13th. That
and
would
they
be
don't
fun.
have their home opener for a couple more weeks.
So hopefully they'll have won a game by the time the home opener happens. Because
Yeah,
that would.
because that's gonna make things really interesting what the home opener might look like.
No, it'll be fun. If there's any game to go to, it's the home opener in a new building.
And it's gonna be loud. It's against the
It's gonna
Jets.
be. It's gonna be loud. It is going to be very loud. And very intimate. Not too many people are going to be there. This is going to be one of those home openers where if you get tickets, you get to have that, tell
Keep
people for the
that
rest of
keep
your life.
that stub. Keep that stub.
Yeah. Oh God, I wish they gave like real tickets again. Just have like a screenshot on your phone. Be like, yeah, this is my e-ticket for the first Coyotes home game at Mullen Arena. It's not
uh,
nearly as cool.
I know, because when I, I used to love carrying the uh ticket stubs with me. Like when I was a season ticket holder to like some like a lower level football team, like I was like super excited. I had like all like you know 10 of them for the season that they had or whatever it was, like eight. Yeah, all eight home games they had. I had it all laid out, and I had the stubs for each of them. And it was awesome.
I was never a Stubbs person. I definitely would always get the any kind of like roster handout, like booklets or sheets, anything like that.
You know what
I
I
still
you know what
have
I
them
do
in a
you know what I
cover.
do hold on to though, Carl?
What?
All my press passes.
Well, that is going to be a problem because you're just going to have too many of them now that you are so close to the arena.
I know. I know. I'm glad about it though. It's going to give me more opportunity to kind of really observe everything rather than having to observe from 100 miles down south of here.
Yeah, should make life much easier.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts that you want to put about this roster?
I think I've said all I need to say.
All right. All right. And so that's going to be it for today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, Don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Karel Vejmelka is Karel Vejmelka FFH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have, we might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.